Well, hello, everybody, and good afternoon. It is time for our Money Monday Lunch and Learn series. I'm so excited to be back. Listen, y'all better get y'all learning on these Mondays, boy. Pastor Tawana Grant is sharing information with us about our finances, and this program has been so informative that you guys don't want to miss out on these messages. Listen, every Monday afternoon, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the Juice Radio and Talk Show. You all make sure that you tune in and share this video with others. Listen, if you haven't seen the other previous videos that we did, go on back on our channel, the Juice Radio and Talk Show, and take a look at those previous ones. You're going to really get some great information out of them and some great tools. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Some great tools to help you with your finances. All right, once again, we want to welcome back Pastor Tawana Grant. Pastor Tawana Grant, how are you?
I am doing wonderful. God bless you. Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to this blessed day that we've been allowed to see. So we're excited. It's Money Monday, and we're going to win in every area of our lives, including our finances. So I'm excited about today.
I'm so excited. Listen, we're excited. Listen, Tyrone was more excited than we were. He was here at about 11:45 a.m. waiting patiently for us to go live. Hey, Tyrone, how you doing? Thanks for being here in the chat. My apologies. This stuff is going off of my phones. I thought I'd turn it off. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Pastor Tawana Grant. Today, we're going to be talking about how to decrease your expenses. Now, everybody wants to know about this, especially trying to decrease our expenses while being on the same income.
Amen. Which is so key, right? We talked about the principles of increasing income. So there's an opportunity that we shared last week. If you weren't with us, go back and check and review the taping so that you can gain that information. But we talked about there are ways that we can increase what we're bringing in, right? These are levers that we can pull to improve our financial stability and our financial status. So one, of course, is increasing what's coming in, and the other one is decreasing what we're sending out. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. How do we evaluate? Not thinking on our own, right? But allowing God to direct us divinely so that we can make the good decisions on some of the things that we, of course, can decrease. Areas that we talked about before in our very first session when we talked about making a budget, we talked about flexible spending. So one of the biggest areas that we can decrease in expenses going out is in our flexible spending, reevaluating what is a necessity versus what is a want.
Now, when you say flexible spending, we're talking about that money that we really don't have to spend, but we spend it anyway.
Yes. Yeah, because we feel like I deserve this. Sometimes we'll get in that posture, I deserve that. And we're not saying that we don't do some things that we enjoy, right? But you have to budget, you have to manage for that. And then to the right degree, because sometimes we fall too far into I deserve that we really forget what we really deserve, which is a fulfilling life, which is having a life well spent. That's really what we deserve, right? And so these small things have a short-term happiness, a short-term feeling of joy, but we need to look at lasting things that will last a long time.
That's
that
it.
will actually bring you a long-term joy and peace.
Yes, things that last a long time. Y'all know some of them handbags that y'all done purchased, they may last a long time, but they may not be part of the flexible spending. Okay, so you, like she said, you may say, well, I deserve this. It's okay, but occasionally. But when it becomes a daily habit and a must have all the time, you're right, Holy Spirit. If you can't say no to yourself one time, you're probably doing too much flexible spending.
All right. That is so true, because a lot of times we always want to tell ourselves yes. I always say yes to the right thing. Because
That's right.
remember, when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. So you got to make sure where you're saying yes is the priority, what you're giving your time to, what you're giving your money to, your resources. These are resources. And in many aspects, you cannot get it back. I mean, this is the time to really sow into the right ground so that you receive the seeds, the blessings, the fruit that we expect. And so this is the time where we have to make our decisions known, right? And we have to bring ourselves in alignment to our purpose.
Alignment to your purpose. Those are key words right there. Alignment to your purpose. And Pastor Grant, I've been in financing basically all my life. I started in banking when I was 19 years old. And I have seen so many people that have lost their focus of their real purpose because they're focusing on putting their money into places and things and even eating out so much or contributing to others that they have lost their own purpose.
Yeah, and that's so true because a lot of times our gateways, we forget that our eyes, right, are gateways into our soul
Mhm.
and into our way of living, our behaviors. What
Mhm.
we see people doing certain things, and therefore we equate value to that. But we have to make sure
Right.
we're attributing value to what God has said for us, right? And so I
Right.
know some people that'll say, "Oh, everything is commercialized." Well, if you watch TV, that is a commercial, right? Even if it's a
Ah,
movie, in there they're wearing certain things, they're saying certain things, they're doing certain things, and then we pick those up, right? And we pick those up and we
mhm.
go with them. And so that's why we have to manage our time, manage what we bring into our hands, right? The fruit of our labor, the fruit of our hands, so we can control our spending. It can be sometimes a challenge, right? And it's revealed when we look at where our money is going. When we look at
Right.
where our money is going, we talked about that too, writing out a plan. So you really need to take an effort to write down where are you spending money, where are your expenses, where is your funding being attributed to, so you can recognize, is this something that I need, or is this flexible spending? And so therefore I have an opportunity to decrease that, live below my means, and then apply that additional funding to something that is a long-term investment, something that
Yes.
will draw me a greater benefit than a right now satisfaction.
Yes. Yes. I love this. Listen, we've got Vernice in the chats. Hey, Vernice. She says, hello, ladies, and hello to you too. Thank you for watching. Please like and share this video with others. It's information and tools they need. Listen, Pastor Grant, I'm really interested in this, how to decrease our finances. Let's dive into this again. What are some of the steps that you would tell people or share with us the information that you have prepared for us regarding how to decrease our
Yes,
expenses?
most certainly. So one thing I always say, awareness is imperative. We talked about that
Mhm.
before. So acknowledging the fact that there's room for you to make adjustments. Sometimes we never
Mm.
want to make adjustments because we feel like everything I'm doing right now is okay. But there's always better, right? There's another level, there's more grace, there's another opportunity for us to be better. And so, even so, in our finances, there's room for adjustment, right? We don't want to lean to our own understanding, but in all our ways, acknowledge Him. Let Him direct our path. Let the Holy Ghost direct our path to acknowledge that there's room for us to improve. All of us,
Yes.
right? All of
Yes.
us have residual spending that we could therefore attribute to something better. And so, one,
Mhm.
that's the first thing. Acknowledge that adjustments are necessary, right? Awareness is the beginning of change. So acknowledge
Mm.
that. Then procrastination. Let's not procrastinate, right? Because we acknowledge, but we are so accustomed as human beings of saying, well, next month or next week. Even if you make an adjustment this particular week, or even today, if you decide today, okay, I'm not going to spend this much on lunch, I'll bring it down. Because I have seen in years, I know now we're in COVID and we don't always go in the office like we used to, but I have seen where people would go to lunch and we would spend $30 on lunch, okay? Or we would spend a lot of money on our specialty coffee. And if you do that over a period of time, it will eventually add up and you'll see, how did I spend $1,000 on coffee? How did I
Ooh.
spend $5,000 this year on lunch? And so these are some of the things that if we pay attention, if we start to make adjustments, we'll realize they're really money traps, right? The invisible money traps where we spend
Ooh.
money that are unnecessary, even without being aware. Have you ever noticed sometimes, and we love potato chips? That's why you say they would say you can't eat just one chip. You get
Oh.
the bag, and as you're sitting there eating, you look up, and then the bag is empty. So the same thing is when we get in that invisible spending trap. We don't even realize how the $25 here and the $35 there and the $50 or $100 here start to add up over time. And then when you look back, you have a big closet full of purses and shoes and those kind of things, which are wonderful to have. But then when you go for an emergency, you don't have anything to draw from. And so that's why we're saying they're invisible traps, because at the time that we're doing it, we don't even feel the impact yet until we really need that money.
Mm. I mean, let me tell you, it's true. We're looking at the moment and not the future. And we do. I can tell you, even myself, as we did our move this week, we spent so much money on just grabbing food to go because we didn't have the kitchen set up yet or so forth, the groceries not ready. And when I look back at it and DoorDash, all those convenient things, convenient. I looked at my bill and I told my husband, forget it. This week we are going grocery shopping. I will not spend another dime on DoorDash or
Yes.
eating out. I will not.
No, and that's so true. I had to tell my son just yesterday. I said, listen, we have food here. Well, you need to be packing lunch. Because sometimes he'll pee me and say, Mama, send me something for lunch. Okay, well, I'm sending something today. And then last week, because I'll normally, at least do them one time a week or something like that. But it was getting to
Mhm.
be multiple days. Oh no. We need to draw back in. Because again,
Right.
that's an invisible trap
It
of
is.
spending money. It's invisible. I don't see it today. But when I look and get my statement next month, I'm going to recognize I spent a lot of money unnecessarily. And so that's what we do. We all
Unnecessarily.
fall. Yeah, we all fall into that invisible trap. So the best way to make sure we don't fall into that is go back to our phase and step number one, which is set a budget. So when you
Hmm.
set a budget, you know where your money is going. You're managing your money and not allowing it to manage us. So
I
Luke
love it.
14:28 says, for an example, who wanted to build a tower does not first sit down and calculate the expense to see if he has enough to complete it. And so again,
Ooh, that's
aware of
powerful.
our expenses helps us to know if we can complete the job we're trying to do, right? And so that's why it's so important. Set a budget. That's the first
Mm.
place where we can start to identify areas to decrease our expenses, decrease what's going on. Again, being aware that we need to make adjustments, being aware of what we consider to hold value to, right? Is that
Hmm.
getting us closer to our vision and our purpose, and then make those necessary adjustments. So we revisit our budget, we revisit it. We've already categorized, right? We talked about that before. Is this a required expense? Meaning a roof over our head, food on the table, clothing, those things that we know are required. And then we set a different category for flexible spending, the eating out, the entertainment, the purchases, spending money, what is not necessity to live and operate, right?
Hmm.
I know some people would say that there's some things relative to your line of business, right? So there's a different, maybe a different clothing you have to wear, a presentation you have to wear because of your line of business, and that's fine. But also do that in moderation, right?
Hmm.
Certain, if you know you need to wear a suit and you need to wear certain things, then you don't need 20 of them. I love what Steve Harvey, he had a video where he showed if you buy these 5 basic suits, you got 25 outfits. And he showed the men how to
Yes.
alternate them through, right? If you have this
Hmm.
color shirt, I think it was like 5 shirts and 5 suits and 5 different ties and 5 different shoes. And he just showed them how you mix and match so that you look totally different. And so those are some of the tools and techniques that we can apply to our life so that we don't add more. We use what we have more efficiently and more effectively.
Yes, sir. And let me tell you, I love that Steve Harvey did that because he's letting people, because, Steve Harvey wasn't always this wealthy man that he
Right.
is today. And
Yes.
so he's sharing his tips and tools also. Of course, now he's able to provide for himself financially the things that, are probably of higher of quality and of higher, cost. But he understands that everyone out here is not in that financial arena that he is right now, but he still wants you all to still be looking fabulous and look great and feel good about what you have. But he also wants us to make sure, by him making that statement, he also wants us to make sure that we watch our money and we don't
Yeah.
try and be like the so-called Joneses.
Yeah, right. And you can operate from that lane and look just as good as everyone
Yes,
else, right? And that's really
yes.
what you shared. I love that you mentioned that point that he's gotten to a certain level where he could
Hmm.
only operate from that lane, but he recognized everybody is not there. And so you have to operate from where you are today. As Paul said, whatever state you're in, therein to be content. And so we have to find pleasure where we are on
Hmm.
the level that God has us for now, right? Because we're believing God for even greater and better in
Right.
our next phase, but you have to live where you are now to
Mm-hmm.
accelerate and try to do things out of season. Will
Mm-hmm.
not allow it to come to the fruition to which it was intended, right? And so
Mm.
timing is everything. It's just
Yes, it
like
is.
if you get a piece of fruit and it hasn't grown to its potential, a lot of times it's hard, it's
Ooh.
not sweet, it's not given or good for use for what it was intended because it was plucked too early. And so a lot of times when God is operating in us and taking us through these phases of life, we have to operate on the right timing in the right season. So this is just our season of preparation. When we miss the season of process, when the blessing does come, again, it hasn't matured to the level of purpose it was intended.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. So the first thing that I think of when I think of decreasing expenses, most people will think about trying to decrease the largest expense first. Would you recommend that, or do you say, like some other people, some other financial people, they say start with the smallest debt first? What's your
Well,
guide on that?
yes, and that depends. If we're paying off debts, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is the rule of starting with the smallest because you can get rid of that the fastest, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there are two options there, right? Going after the biggest one and then paying down on the biggest one. But the thing with that is takes you a little bit longer because it is big, right? It is the largest amount. But when you start with the smaller amount due, so we're talking about paying down bills, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
paying off expenses, paying off
Mm-hmm.
debt. It is more easier to start with the smaller amount, right? Because once you finish paying that one off, if you have nothing else, there's one out of the way and you have an opportunity and the feel of success. We
Mm.
all need that. We all need to feel like I've done something. I have a check by something and it's done. A lot of times
Mm-hmm.
when we go after the challenge of the largest, it takes us the longest to fulfill it. And then somewhere in there, we lose hope. Somewhere within there, we feel as if it's taking too long. And so
Mm-hmm.
there are two good things to that by starting on your smallest bill first when we're talking about debt, paying off debt relief, debt consolidation, paying off the largest amount, one, because you get there faster, and two, because you have the feeling of success. And so you've been
Mm-hmm.
able to accomplish one. And so when you go to the next one, it is much easier because you realize, hey, I've done that one. I can do this one next. And then the financial contributions that you were giving to the smaller one, now you add that and more to the next one. And so
That's
you have,
right.
because you still have to pay. Say, for instance, you have 5 bills, right? And you're starting with the smallest first. You're paying on the smallest first more, but you're making sure all the other four are getting what they need, right? So it's not as
Mm-hmm.
if you stop paying on everything. You're
Mm-hmm.
giving the smallest one your most attention, but the other four still have to be paid because you want to maintain your credit. And the other
Mm-hmm.
four, you can also give it at the minimum, right? And then pay a little bit more if you can. But if your intention is to pay off the first one, I would personally say pay your minimum on your four and pay number five, everything else you got, right? And you'll get
Mm-hmm.
to that out of your flexible spending, you'll get to paying that one off sooner. And then when you go to the second one, right, you're on the second, number five is gone. You can apply what you were given to one, and now it's going more onto that next one, number two, and then you're paying what you can minimum at a minimum on the other three. And then you go about it that way because, again, you're seeing progress. Again, you're having success. And so that
I
is one
love
of the
it.
recommended ways when you're paying down debt.
I love it. So Royer's in the chat. Hey Royer, how you doing? He
Oh,
says,
yeah.
"Hey family." Royer, I was thinking about you. I'm going to call you when I get off this live. I was thinking about you. You're on my thought process today. Hey, May is here today. Also, hey May, how
Hello,
you
May.
doing?
Hey
She
there.
says, "Hey family, hey family. Listen, I'm loving this." So, Pastor Tawana, we want to decrease these expenses. Now, what some people do is, like you said, when we say we're going to start with the smallest debt, we pay that off, and then we take the money that we were paying on that and we put it towards one of the other debts. What
Yes.
some people make the mistake in doing is they paid off that one small debt and now they think they have that extra money to put in their pocket and do with what they want. That's a
Oh,
huge
no.
mistake. Red
Yeah,
flag.
huge, huge mistake because you're on a mission, right? You have an assignment. Your assignment is to get out of debt. You're not done with your assignment until you're out of debt. You're not completed, right? And so you want to
Right.
stay focused. The other thing I would say, as you are paying off these cards, put them up. Put them up. Make them unavailable to you because you're only increasing your debt. Make them,
Mm-hmm.
unless there's something where you have to use it, right? Make it minimal because you've written out your expense listing, you know where your money is going. Because you've categorized it, you know where it is a necessity or where it is flexible spending. And so now you're
Mm-hmm.
making better decisions. And so you know you don't need to have 5 cars running with additional expenses every month because you're only making it larger as you're trying to decrease. So put the card up. Just like the one we just talked about. When you pay off number 5, which is your lowest card, doesn't mean go back and pick it up and start adding back onto it. You
Mm-mm.
are delaying your progress, right? And so we want to put that away. Okay, that's done. I've done it. Doesn't mean you won't ever use it again. It means I'm on an assignment to finish getting out of debt, and therefore I do myself a disservice by continuing to add.
Yes.
Continue to
Yes.
add and get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
What do they say? Stop the bleeding. Stop the bleeding. And so there you can do your triage. We're in triage right now. We're trying to
Ooh.
pay down our debt. We're in triage. We're trying to get everything back into good health state. We're getting our
Mm-hmm.
finances back into a good health state. And so therefore, we got to put that to the side. It's just like when they are in the hospital and somebody's having an emergency and they have to pump the chest. They say clear. They say everybody back away. So when you
Oh,
are in an assignment and on a mission where you are trying to relieve debt, you're trying to bring that, you got to clear the way. Okay, you have to
wow.
be on purpose. You have to be on mission so that you don't find yourself back in that state again. And it's going to cause for discipline. I have to tell you that. It's going to cause you to have to pray, going to cause you to have to ask God when you are going to do something. If you cannot afford it, don't do it.
Yes. And don't feel bad about not doing
Yes,
it. Don't be embarrassed about it because again, like we said on the previous shows, you have a goal in mind. I also want to go back to when we're saying paying off the smallest debt. I'm a visual type person. I like visualization of stuff and I like to make things fun for me. So I would give a suggestion if any of you want to do this. If you have credit card debt or a bill or whatever it may be, take a copy of that bill or that credit card and post it somewhere in your house, like maybe on your mirror, your bathroom mirror or something, and let it be a daily goal so you can see it. And
yes,
once you have paid that thing off, your goal is I'm going to pay this off, I'm going to pay this off, pay this off. And if you want to purchase something for yourself, like you go to the store and you say, well, I want these pair of socks, or I want this dish, or I want this, don't buy it. Instead, take the money that you would have spent on that and put it toward that goal that's on your mirror and say, I'm
yes,
going to put this toward this goal. And then once you pay it off, have a celebration that you
yes.
paid that off. Take it down and put it on a little folder somewhere that says mission accomplished.
I like
Have,
that. I
right?
like that mission accomplished. That's why I said you have to have success, and that's going to fuel you to go to the next one, right?
Yes.
Because depending on how far in depth we are, it may take us a while. You may not finish in 6 months. Some of our amounts that we have to give attention to may be high. It might take you the whole year.
Yes.
It may take you
Yes.
the whole year, every month, paying on it to get to the end goal. But as you go along, we said celebrate your success. Say I did it. That's the Friday to go and get that $10 cup of coffee.
Celebrate. And
Yeah,
and that's something you can do.
yeah, and that's something you can do, or purchase. Go and get you a nice meal, and that's something. And then you say, okay, now let me come back down and
Come
stay
on
on
back.
course, right? And so
Yes.
we're not saying we don't want you to live, because that's another
Right.
reason why people do not maintain a budget, is because they make them so constraining that it's
Mm-mm.
difficult for them to maintain. And so that's why
Mm-mm.
we're saying we're not eliminating all flexible spending. We're saying you have to be able to manage and discipline yourself to know what is most important. And so
I
maybe
love
for
it.
somebody who's going to the movies every weekend, maybe that's once a weekend. And so therefore you
Mm-hmm.
say maybe movies are so expensive now, between the movie and the eating, you might have saved $75 a week by not going every week. Now just go once a week. Or maybe if you eat out a lot, right? You might decide what we were talking about earlier, Regina. I'm going to cook, right? And
Mm-hmm.
Sunday is my day to eat out, right? I'm not eating
Mm-hmm.
out every day. I'm trimming it
Mm-hmm.
back so that I manage my expenses. And some of us, in certain instances, you can afford more. But just because you can, should you, right? Is that the
What?
best use of your kingdom funding? Can it
Mm.
contribute to something else?
I love that. What would you say, Pastor Grant, to some people who say, listen, I don't have any flexible spending. I am barely making ends meet, but I still want to decrease my expenses?
Yes, almost certainly. So there are a lot of ways, even, and we talked about it last week. So if you need opportunities on increasing your income, we have some ideas for you. Go back and check that video out.
Yes.
But there are some things that every day we can do, right,
Hmm.
to decrease our spending. One, we just talked about cooking instead of eating out. That is a huge, huge, invisible trap on spending
Hmm.
money. Because it goes away before we know it. We talked about buying specialty beverages. That's a way to cut down on expenses. We talk about creating a shopping list. So some of us, even though we're saying, I'm just going grocery shopping, well, we might spend $200 on grocery shopping. And then, as you know, because a lot of people don't cook, we end up with cupboards full of food, cupboards full, right? And we still grocery shopping. Oh my God.
Still.
Still grocery shopping, spending money. But if we use what we already have, right? Being intentional, make it an activity. We did this once. Listen, I'm gonna try and use up everything I have in this refrigerator before I buy something
Yes.
else. Tell you,
Yes.
I'm gonna use up everything I have in the freezer before I buy something. And maybe I might have to buy some vegetables, right? Or some fruit to go along with it because they are perishable. But the meat, I got enough meat. Right? Maybe
Yes.
you have a lot in your deep freezer and you say, listen, I don't need to buy any more meat. I just keep buying this stuff. Let's use what we already have. You would be surprised how much you already have available. So again, when you grocery shopping, make a list and stick to it. Don't go in there when you're hungry.
Ooh, that's the worst thing to do. That's the
Oh
worst thing.
yeah.
Listen,
Yes.
my husband and I did exactly that when we were preparing for our move. We had the freezer full of stuff, and we said, "Listen, we don't have to go to the grocery store for anything else. We're going to use what we have." And we made it fun because, again, I'm a visualist. I like fun things, so we made it fun. We were like, "Okay, let's take what we have and find some creative ways to make certain dishes at home and cook and so forth with the things that we have." And it was fun, and actually, it was a lot healthier for us
Yes.
doing it that way as well. I'd also like to add, there was a time when my husband and I weren't in a financial place like we are today. We were in a lesser financial situation, and we had to find ways to decrease our expenses. And I'm one of those people, and that's one of the reason why I asked a question about us who would be like, listen, I'm already tapped out. I don't have anything else. I'm not doing any, flexible spending. And so what I had to do, I prayed first, because we tell
Yes.
you, prayer will get you through everything. I prayed first and I said, Lord, I need some help on what can I do to decrease these expenses. I'm still, way deaded down. What can I do? And I started talking with people. And one of the persons I talked to was an electrician. He came over to check something in a house one day, and I was talking to him about how can I decrease my light bill. And he says, what you should do, he says, a lot of people don't know this. He says, but if you go in your house and you unplug everything that you do not use on a daily basis, including those little night lights that we plug into our wall at night, he says you would decrease your light bill by so much. He says people don't realize how much just those little plug-ins. And so
Yes.
he went in the house with me and he says, how often do you use a toaster? We're in the kitchen. And I said, well, occasionally, maybe Saturdays. He said, well, why is it plugged in Monday through Friday? And I
That
said,
is a good
huh,
point.
yeah. And then he went through the house and everything that we weren't using on a daily basis, he said, unplug it. He said, and then when you use it, you plug that toaster in, you do your toast, you unplug it. He says, you're going to start seeing a decrease in your power bill, which I thought it was so simple. And I'm thinking it's not going to make a big difference. But Pastor Tawana, it made a huge difference.
Praise God.
Another thing he told me, and this is another great tip, he said, he took me in the laundry room and he says, you see this hot water tank? And I says, yeah. He says, it's running constantly 24 hours a day, pulling some of your largest current. He says, if you take this and you turn the panel box off and you leave it off, he says, the tank is huge. He says, it's just you and your husband and your daughter. He says, there's enough water, hot water in here to last you a good 3 days.
Oh
He says, so
wow.
you turn that tank off, and then when you feel the water get cold, you turn it back on, you let it heat up, and then you turn it back off, a day or two later, you're going to save. So I was in there, Pastor Grant. I was turning the hot water tank off. I
I'll
was
bet.
unplugging. I was doing everything, checking the window sills to see where my air is going out, turning off the AC unit and opening up the windows. I was doing all of that because I wanted to save money, and I did. I
That
saved
is
a lot of
wonderful.
money.
Because I've even, when you mentioned about the windows too, right, and the release of our heat out, some of us are letting heat. I remember when my cousin used to say, "Close the door. I'm not trying to heat all of Chicago."
That part.
He said, "Close the door. I'm not trying to heat all the city." And so we do need to evaluate. That is a good point of reference, and that's for everybody. That we
Everybody.
go back and reevaluate our electricity, reevaluate how we're leveraging our utilities. Are we on the most efficient plans? That's another
Mm-hmm.
thing, right? Go back and look at, is that plan the most efficient for you and the use that you need? Is there a way that you can evaluate that? It also cuts cost over the long run. I definitely would say too, coupons. We don't talk about that a lot anymore, but
Yes.
people are still using coupons and still saving big money. My
Big money.
sister is an avid of that, of using coupons and getting stuff free, recognizing when they're having buy one, get one, and just being conscious of those things. A lot of times we've gotten more comfortable, I believe, in our lifestyle. And so we don't always go back and do those simple things that we can do that could add so much in decreasing our expenses. Again, that coupon shopping, but I love that, Regina, about
Mm-hmm.
reevaluating your utilities and see where there's opportunity there, so that we can curb that, right? General maintenance in the home. That
Yes.
also goes to that if you work on it now, right? If you make
Mm-hmm.
sure we do our general maintenance around the house, it'll save on some major uh, issues or repair that we might have later, right? Some of those
Mm-hmm.
things. I've always said, if you see a warning, check into it now, because maybe you can fix it versus when it, fully is disrupted, especially when it comes to a car, right? General
Yes.
maintenance on a car is very good. If you keep up with it, one thing, you improve the life of the car. You improve it
Mm-hmm.
so that it can maintain and you can have it for a good while. And then two, you limit when you might have to have some repair. You reduce it by giving it attention now. I never forget someone who had their oil light on. They kept saying, "I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to take care of it." Oil light stayed on, and then ultimately the engine locked up. Okay.
Uh-oh.
So that is a engine repair, which is thousands of dollars, versus going and maybe it was just an oil change. Maybe it was just a crack that might needed to be resolved or remediated, but now it's a whole engine. And so those
Mm-hmm.
kind of things can decrease our expenses in the long run. The care of our tires, that's another thing. Care of the tires on the car, decrease how much gas you have to use, the opportunity there. So there's a lot of things that we can do. I love what you said. If I don't have any flexible spending, what can I do to cut back? One of the things that's also mentioned is some of our perks, our vices, things that we like, that we might spend a lot of money on, that we could
Mm-hmm.
save on. Also, it could be paying for cash when we're shopping, because that helps mitigate on some of our credit card expenses. For those of you who have credit cards, one of the other things that you can do is always check in with your credit card provider and see if there's a lower interest rate that you could gain at this particular time for a period of time. See if there's opportunity for you to bring that down. So all of those things matter. And when we put them all together, we'll see movement. We'll
Mm-hmm.
see progress. We'll see some of the financial expenses now staying with us, right? Instead of going out the door, now we have this additional funding, which we said now you can attribute to paying down other things or the other goals that you have in mind. Maybe you don't have a lot of expenses to decrease, but you're trying to find extra funding to do some other things. Here are some of those levers that we can pull on to give us that additional funding to do those things.
Right. I love that. I love that. And also talking about the credit cards. There are some credit card companies that will offer you a balance transfer program,
Yes.
sick program. And if you do that, they will sometimes give you no interest on a balance transfer or
Yes.
limited time with so forth. But they have programs out there that would help you. Also, going back to the utilities, water usage. Listen, water usage can cost your water bill to go extremely high. When my husband and I were going through our moment where we were having a financial struggle at the time, we ended up doing what my husband called military showers. And he says that a military shower to him is when you get in the shower, you turn it on for a moment, you wet yourself, you turn it off, and then you lather yourself up. And then when you're done lathering yourself up, you turn it back on, you wet yourself, and then you get out. You know?
Yes.
He
No,
said, you
that's
don't
great.
let that water drain. And when you're in the kitchen, you don't let that water drain. You don't let the water just run. If a toilet is running, it is going to be a high water bill. I know this with servicing our tenants. A tenant will
Yes.
call us and say, hey, my water bill has gone up. What's happened? And when we send a plumber over there, the toilet has been running a little shh, and the
Yes.
tenant ignored it. And because they
Right.
ignored it, the water bill was extremely high. Like you said, the maintenance on the home. But also, I wanted to say a few other things that I did because this is why I'm loving decrease your expenses because I have lived this.
Yes.
I have lived it.
Amen.
Another part, what I did was the cable bill. I got rid of my cable because I
Yes.
said, I can't afford this. I don't need to be watching HBO, Send to the Max. I don't need to be watching.
Right, right.
I don't
No,
need
that's
any of
different.
that. You
That's
know?
again flexible spending, and that's on my list here.
Yes.
Is getting rid of the cable, and in some cases, some of us have a lot of alternative things that we're using. Right,
Yes.
we have a lot of things that are subscription bound, and so we're paying. We don't
That
hardly
part.
use them. Again, that's flexible spending that we can now attribute to something else. And some of them
Hmm.
are very expensive. And listen, there are other ways now to live stream. So there are a lot of things that you can have for free. I've seen it myself too, where a movie's out and they'll say it costs this much. I said, I don't want to pay that much. And then next
Hmm.
thing I know, before I know it, long after, is on one of the free networks. You can watch it
There
for
you
free.
go. There you go. Joseph's
Just
in the chat. Hey, hey,
hey,
Joseph. He says, hey, he says, I barely made it. He said, good morning, beautiful people. How are we on this day? Greetings from the Big Apple. Oh, you're in New
God
York?
bless you. God
All
bless
right. I'm telling you, traveling man. I'm telling you, hey, Joseph. Listen, I love it, Pastor Grant.
you.
Also,
Yes,
what we could make some recommendations for some of you who are maxed at your spending and saving. You're maxed at your saving. You just like I don't have any room, but I still want to decrease this stuff. Another tool that I did was, like I said, I got rid of the cable, but my children were small at the time. My kids still wanted to watch TV, so I had to get those little antenna. They had the TV boxes back then, but now today they have what's called the Fire Stick.
that's
And the
right. Fire
Fire
stick,
Stick,
Roku.
it
Yeah.
it has so much on there, you guys. You all you need is just a basic cable Wi-Fi internet, and some of y'all can stream off of your phones. Your cell phones come with free hotspots. Some of you. I have a free hotspot on my phone, and you can run the Fire Sticks from that as well. But there's other things. And another thing that I would suggest to people who are trying to decrease expenses is this is a major one. If you're a renter and you're renting a property, that property is probably one of your largest expenses. You may want to find a way to decrease by getting something else, a smaller place with a lower rental amount. I have seen this so many times with
Yeah.
tenants who rent from us. They qualify when they go in, they may barely qualify. And then later on, during the year or so forth that they're there, financial things change. They can no longer really afford it like when they first did their application. And unfortunately, they try and struggle to stay there because they don't want to move. But I remember this when I was watching Married to Medicine. Eugene was telling his wife, Toya, he says, Toya, he's looked at her and he says, we need to cut expenses. And she's trying to name all these other things to do. And Eugene looked over to her and he said, we're living in our largest expense. And that was the house
Amen.
that they were renting. And he says, we have to get rid of this. She didn't want to get rid of it because, she loved it. The kids loved it. It was a nice area. But Eugene had to tell her, this is not needed. This is way more than we need. And if we have a goal to build our own, we're going to have to get rid of our largest debt. And they did. And by them doing that, they were then able to purchase and build their own beautiful dream home.
Amen. Amen.
So we may have to
Sometimes
look
people
at,
feel like they're
yes,
losing when they have to make
you're
a pivot,
not.
right? We talked about making adjustments. Even if you lose something, you haven't lost. You're gaining more. Even the word talks about that. When you give up your life for Christ, you're gaining more. So sometimes we might have a home that have become very dear and near to us.
Yes.
You got to know your season. And especially as you mentioned, when you're renting, you have opportunity to move. It may not be comfortable or convenient to pack up, but in the long run, you're going to win. You're going to have the additional money to purchase your own, right?
Right.
You mentioned it was too large or too big, and so they could
Yes.
downsize. Downsizing doesn't mean you now diminish your life,
Mm-mm.
right? Downsizing means now I've given myself room. I've given
That's
myself
it. I love that.
room to do other things, room to have more decision power. Because a lot of times when we are maxed out, the enemy have us in the spirit of anxiety. We worry,
Oh,
right? But when you downsize, you give yourself room, room to make good, clear decisions, room to reevaluate and not be under so much pressure. So don't look at that as a negative. Look at that as a positive way forward. This is the track that God has taken me to go forward.
I love that. And then also during that downsizing, what you're doing is you're cleaning up some of the stuff that you've had
Yes.
stored in your home. We just went through this whole process. I got a whole storage shed full of stuff and a storage unit. And I told my husband, I said, now this is ridiculous. I said, this is ridiculous. And I told him, I said, I am going to sell all this stuff. And then I thought about it. I said, well, wait a minute. If it takes me a year to sell all this stuff, is it going to equate to the amount that I'm using every month to pay for this storage?
All right.
And I
Good
said,
money management.
I'm not sure if that's going to work out. So I may just donate
Right.
all this stuff and save that money that I would pay for storage. Because I had to sit down and, like you said in one of the previous videos, I did a spreadsheet and I counted the numbers and I said, 12 months at this amount for this storage. And I added up everything in the storage. And I said, I don't even think I'm going to get that much for this. So I'm just going to
Right.
donate. We're just going to donate
Yes.
and get
Yes.
rid of the storage.
Yes.
We have to do
It's
that.
emotional attachment, right? We're emotionally
Right.
attached to a lot of things. And then
We
we have to
are.
wear some of that stuff like a loose garment. The scripture say you have to wear it like a loose garment. Be okay to have it. Be okay not to have it. Right? Whatever
That's
state
right.
you're in. And so that we know that does not devalue who we are. Doesn't devalue
No.
you. Right? And I love the
Mm-mm.
fact that you're talking about donating. Now you're adding joy to somebody else. Your increase is somebody else's come up. Oh my God.
Come on
Your
now.
blessing is somebody else's opportunity.
I
What
love
God
that.
has led you to, now somebody else is able to be blessed by that. So you're blessed to be a blessing. That's wonderful. I think we
I
have to
love.
all do that. We're having a community event coming up in May, and we've been telling everybody go through your house, clean it out. Why?
See?
Because God can bless you, right? You're gonna be a blessing to somebody else, but you need some of our stuff so full anyway. We don't have room for any more blessings.
See, and that's what I said. That's what I said. The same thing. I said, you know what? I says, I'm like you just said, I want some space. I want to be able to breathe. I don't want the anxiety. So I
Yes,
want to get rid of some of the stuff, only the necessities. And a
yes,
lot of that stuff that we have, we've done. We did our flexible spending. I went in the store, bought this. It was cute. I thought it was only $5. And, 5 years later, it's, it's still there. It's
yes,
adding to the debt. So Joseph said in the chat, he says, I don't know what all was discussed, but I find that it's important to identify that we lie to ourselves and think I'm not spending that much, but we don't write down what we spent. Willful blindness.
yes, yes.
Yes.
We talked about that invisible trap. Invisible
Yes.
money trap. We don't know how much we spend it until we get the bill. We think, I spent that much this month.
They can't take it back.
Right,
Tyrone said the truth hurts when we're talking about downsizing in the home. The truth does hurt, but it also heals. It
yeah,
heals. And we want to heal everyone's wallets and pocketbooks. And like Pastor Grant said, they're going to have an event where maybe I'll just donate some of the stuff to your church, Pastor Grant. You can let me
yes.
know if there's some things that you want. But it's okay to get rid of some things. Like you said, we emotionally hold on to things. If you want to have the breath and clearness and freeness and happiness and to be like, okay, I'm good, I can breathe now, it's okay to donate. If you can sell it, okay, you can do that too. My daughter was telling me about some platforms where you could sell your stuff. I'm not big on that. I don't have the time to ship and all that kind of stuff. That's just me. Now you may have that. My daughter did this when she was younger. My husband and I had put her on timeout, and we said, we're not buying you any more designer shoes. We said, we're not buying it. That's part of my flexible spending that got me in debt, right? But
Yes.
trying to contribute to my daughter's expensive shoe shop. And so when we told her we're not doing that anymore, well, she got creative. She found these stores that would buy the shoes from her, and she started selling her shoes to these stores. So there are places out there that will actually buy some of your used goods. There are consignment stores that will probably help you with selling some of your items if you want to go that route. If you don't want to do the full donating, you can get, some form of income from some of the things. I mean, she was a kid, she was a teenager, and she found these stores that say, listen, we'll buy these things from you, and so forth. And she did that. And she took her little money that she had and she spent it on whatever she wanted to spend it on. So there are resources and things out there that will help you get yourself out of these expenses that you have and out of this debt. I love it. Pastor Grant, let's continue to share while we have some more time here. I'm loving this.
Yeah. So one of the other things we talked about, the house, and our housing being one of our largest expenses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So evaluating where we're moving to, how much we want to spend. I find a lot of times people, we talked about that before, they go to the very highest that they can afford to pay. Don't always allow others to push you into something that's going to cause you to be under stress, right?
Right.
Like, they say, I can afford this. Well, that's great, but that's at the top of your income. What can you afford with your life? With your lifestyle, with your living, with your dedication, with tithing and giving and serving and want to take care of yourself. Now add all that in and the expenses of, utilities and those things that are, again, necessary spending. Now evaluate what can you afford, right?
Right.
I'll never forget that when we're having our first house built, I was single a long time ago. And the young lady was like, oh, no, you can afford this. I understand that. I don't want that. I don't want that. I know I can afford that, but I want to live. I don't want to be house poor. We've heard
That's right.
before. I don't want to just have a house and then I can't do nothing else. I can't furnish it. I can't live in it. I'm going to be at the job or working something 24/7, trying to make sure everything is comparable, right? And so don't allow that need to be like the Joneses, or that need within ourselves to look like what we see on TV or look like what we hear people, because you don't know what they're doing to keep it. You don't know what they're going through to have it, or you don't know what they're experiencing to get to that level to be able to afford it.
Right.
They have done the work and now they can get that. So you have to evaluate where you are. So we want to encourage you today, because it's all about managing your finances. You can't evaluate what you don't manage. So you have to manage your finances. And so we want to make sure when you do that, because Regina already said that is our largest expense, is where we live. That's our largest expense. So sometimes we have to evaluate and purchase or attribute ourselves to what we can afford in the life that we want to live for the now. That doesn't mean forever. I've had some people, well, I just have to live it. I understand that, but where can you live for now? Our future goal, and that's something we can path toward, but what is it for now? What can you do for now so that you enable yourself and you feel successful? A lot of times we feel deflated because we don't set our minds to live and operate where we are with the expectation that greater is coming. Greater and better is coming, having hope that things are going to improve, things are going to get better. So that's one thing. And then also, if you own the home, there's an opportunity to talk with your lender. Maybe you can get a lower interest. Maybe you can get a refinance. Maybe you can look at some other options there. But again, a lot of times we don't ask. So if we don't ask, we don't know. My father used to say all they can do is tell you no. So ask the question, what other options do I have? Sometimes we have a lot of empty space. Maybe you can consider, if you have a basement, it's furnished, finished. Maybe that is another source of income. We talked about renting as an income. Maybe you can allow someone to live in that space, and then that's added income to you. We talked about that before. So that, again, will help you decrease your expenses by not having to have empty space, and you're using it and leveraging it for financial income. So think about it. Yes.
I've even seen some people in my profession that they purchased a home and years later their finances changed and they were no longer able to afford that home, but they didn't want to get rid of it. They didn't want to sell it. So what they ended up doing was they would come to us and have us to rent it for them. So we find a tenant, and then what they would do, they would either go live with relatives or they would find a small apartment that they would stay in. so that the money that they were making to pay their mortgage would actually almost help them pay their rental. So it was almost like a balance that they did.
Isn't that a blessing?
It
Amen. And
is.
so that's that
And
kind of creative thinking
right.
that the Holy Ghost will give you to think of new ways to accumulate wealth. That's one of my friends always says on her message. She says, think of new ways to accumulate wealth. And so that is a new way. It may not work for everybody,
It
but you
may
have to
not.
do again what we talked about, what works best for you, what works
Correct.
best for you and your family. And so that
Correct.
is an opportunity to still hold that asset, still own it, and somebody else is paying it and
That's
paying
right.
for where you live.
And paying where you live.
I
I
find
don't.
that's a win-win.
Let me tell you, it works out for them. It works out. And also, I wanted to share this when we're talking about the homes. And if you are out there and you're looking for a home, you're looking to purchase a home, I want you to also not just look at the mortgage, but look at the HOA costs. A lot
Yes.
of people, when they purchase a home, they forget to count
Yes.
in the HOA costs, especially you who are buying townhomes or buying homes with amenities like swimming pool access, playgrounds, and all that stuff. You're paying for that. So you want to know not what just the initiation charge is for you when you purchase, but you want to know what that monthly fee is going to be as well. And so, when you're looking to purchase a property, look into that as well, especially those who are in condos. I had a young lady call me and she said she wants to buy a condo and she said, I qualify for this amount. And I said, okay. I said, have we calculated in the HOA? And she says, well, I don't know. And she gave me an address and we looked at the address. Well, the HOA was $500 a month.
Wow. Yes. And she needed to
five
know
hundred
that.
dollars a month. And I told her, I said, have you calculated in this $500 a month? Because even if you pay this condo off and you have no mortgage, you still have this $500 a month.
That's
I
right.
said, do you want to do that? And she thought about it for a moment and she was like, well, maybe I need to look in townhomes.
Right. Right. And that's so
Yes.
key. Ours is annual, but that is good
Hmm.
point that there are some residences that is monthly. You need to take
It's
that into account.
monthly.
And also the rules and regulations, right?
Yes.
Because that's something that we don't even think about. Rules and
Yes.
regulations of some of the areas that you move into, because I've seen that before when there's been like a HOA concern, right? Because they
Hmm.
require certain things of every homeowner, and that's not something that they were aware of. And as
They
they'll
were
tell you,
not aware.
ignorance of the law is no excuse, right? And
It's
so you're still binding. And so that's good information. That's good
You
information.
are you would be stuck in there. So
Yeah.
listen, there are several ways. Pastor Tawana Grant has been so gracious to join us again today to share with us her financial expertise. There are several ways of how you can decrease your expenses. These are just a few of the items that we told you. If you have some suggestions or some things that you would also recommend, I would ask that you put it in the chat because we want to share the information with others. Maybe it's something that you did and has worked for you and you want to share that tip or two with others, go ahead and put it in the chat. Even if you're watching a repeat of this, please put your information in the chat so that we can share with others because we want everybody to live a nice debt-free life. And like Pastor Tawana Grant said before, if you see someone else and they're living in a beautiful home, you may not know this, but they may have paid off all of their other debt before they obtained that new home because their focus was to get in the home and pay it off. So maybe they went into that home without all the debt. And you too can do the same thing. We're going to help you clear up your debt so that when you get to that major goal, which everyone likes to do, is that home purchasing process, you want to be able to go in there and breathe easy and know that you did everything right that you were supposed to do before you got in there. And then you're going to do everything right to get that paid off too. Because that's a goal we have in mind for you also. Not just to have a home with a mortgage, but to have a home that's free and clear. That's
Yeah.
a major, major goal for all of us. Pastor Grant, I have loved this. I've loved this. We still have a few minutes here. Did you want to share some other information on here? We have gone through so much. And then I want to give a big thank you to you after you're done with this, because I have something I would like to share with you. So any other closing thoughts you have on this program today?
Well, again, as we talked about a multiple ways that
Yeah.
you can decrease your expenses, you know your own personal life and the decisions and where you are today. But there's something in there for everyone, right? There's an
Hmm.
opportunity for everyone to improve, opportunity for everyone to adjust, and to what degree, right? To what level? Again, we talked about some things you might want to go from every day to once a week. Some things where
Hmm.
you might want to go to once a month or once a quarter, right? And so you need to look at how do I scale so that I decrease my expenses, and then I'm adding value to the things of purpose, things that give me long-term asset, long-term financial stability and status. So that's really what we're trying to do, strengthen us in that area, so that even as we get income, if you're getting it in and you sending it right back out the door, you haven't improved. So that's why we talk about bringing it in, income, increasing income, but we've also talked about decreasing expenses so that your gap gets larger. And with the gap, we have more opportunity. And so we just encourage you to join us on next week for Monday, Money Mondays, as we start to go into the next phase about credit, right?
Yes.
Verse 22:7 talks about the rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. So we want to talk about changing our posture and talk about credit and really how it's used and how we manage it, right? And get ourselves in a better position from a credit perspective. So God bless you on today. Thank you, Regina, for the opportunity to share. Thank you.
I love it. Thank you so much, Pastor Grant. Thank you so much. Listen, these Money Monday series with our Lunch and Learn segments have been so great and informative. And there are tools that if you put them to work, I believe they'll work for you, for your benefit. Pastor Grant, I want to share this before we close this out. We've got a couple of minutes here left. You advised us on one of the previous episodes, I believe it was last week, about financing, and you spoke about investing, and you mentioned that Amazon is now allowing people to buy into their stock. Yeah. Well, I was so intrigued by that. I actually went online, found a stock portfolio, and purchase stock in Amazon. You don't have to have a lot of money. Listen, just a little will do. Just throw a little money in there, throw a little something in there. And Pastor Grant, when I did that, I felt like I had accomplished so much. And I want to thank you for giving me that informative information, because it makes me feel as though there's growth. Amen. And so I invested in that. My daughter, I mentioned it to her, and she told me, she says, Mom, she says, put some money in Google. You're going to see Google is doing good. And so I did that. So we have two little programs in our, well, not little, thank you, Holy Spirit. We have two investments that we did. And it just makes me feel as though, I'm grown up, Amen.
And it's progress. And that is awesome. Because again, the word is no benefit to us if we don't apply it.
You got to apply it. You got to apply it.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that today. Amen.
I love it. Now, you too can get some more information about your finances, and we're going to help you do that next week. Join us again next week, same time, Monday afternoon, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Y'all come on back now. Y'all come on back next week, because we're going to be talking about credit. And this is one of the largest topics when we're talking finances. It may need to be a 2-part series, but we'll see how it goes. But you want to be back. Let's talk about your credit so that we can get this financing part together, all right? Because it all intertwines together, y'all, all right? I want to thank y'all for joining us again today. Remember, if you have not already done so, go on over there to my YouTube channel, The Juice Radio and Talk Show. Subscribe today to that channel, The Juice Radio and Talk Show. You see the logo on the screen here. Remember to do that. Also, I want you to know that Pastor Tawana Grant has a church ministry in Riverdale, Georgia. You guys want to be a part of that. She's also on Facebook Live under My Father's House Pentecostal Church, My Father's House Pentecostal Church in Riverdale, Georgia. And the Facebook page is the same name, My Father's House Pentecostal Church. Y'all go over there and subscribe and follow her today, okay? We also have something special that we're putting in the works here. Pastor Grant and I are getting together, and we're trying to have a little thing that we're going to be able to do something for you guys, where you can sit together amongst each other. But we'll tell you more about that as we get it together, okay? But join us every Monday afternoon. Join us next week for our Money Monday series, where next week we're going to be talking about credit. All right. Love y'all for watching. Pastor Grant, always so appreciative. I am growing so much by listening to your sound wisdom regarding finances. And I'm so proud of myself.
What we're doing. Sharpening iron. Thank you so much. This is wonderful.
I love it.
Great is coming. Yeah.
I love it. And proud of you all too for the work y'all are doing too, okay? Because we know it's going to be wonderful. All right, Pastor Grant, on the count of 3, we're going to get out of here because we are business women. We got to get back to work. Now, y'all, okay?
The next one.
The next one. All right. So on the count of 3, we're going to say goodbye for now. Goodbye for now. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Goodbye. Bye.